Mark sat stuffed into the little cubicle that several graduate teaching assistants shared. Mark thought about how he initially had enjoyed the idea of teaching a statistics class, but now it was full of drudgery and frustration. With his first test scheduled in a couple of days, he wanted to create something that would let him know if the blank, glassy-eyed stares seen in the eyes of his students was a lack of understanding or boredom. He stared at the computer screen and backspaced over what he had typed for the 100th time. Benny peeked his head in and said, "Hi, Mark." Turning his head towards Benny, Mark asked, "I know that you feel I should use those old pre-made tests, but I just don't feel that would be fair. They're so old and don't reflect what I've been teaching. Have you ever written a test of your own?" With a hint of arrogance in his voice, Benny responded, "Yeah, the first test I gave last semester, I wrote myself, and I'll never do that again. I got them to think, though. The average score was 55%. Most of the students didn't even use the half page I left for each problem. Anyway, stats are stats, and time doesn't change that." "So you had them work out all the problems?" Mark queried. "That's the only way to find out what they know. Have them show a lot of work," was Benny's reply. "Isn't that hard to grade?" Mark asked. "Not as hard as you think. The really good students usually get all the points. Then you try and decipher the others' thought processes. I always throw them a few points for having the right formula. Anyway, after a few beers, they all look the same." Mark thought for a moment before replying, "I was thinking about mixing things up a bit. Some multiple choice, true, false, and have them work out some. I mean, from what I've read, that's supposed to help address the different learning styles and different types of memory. Anita does all multiple choice. She has them graded in about 5 minutes and has the highest class average of all the TAs. I always hear freshmen telling their friends to get into her class. So, you're right, that is an option." Benny paused a moment and then added, "You know those old tests have about the same average score, so I use them now." Mark looked at the computer screen again and began typing. In the forum, you'll be reflecting and sharing your thoughts and ideas on creating assessments and how best to address assessments in your class or classes. From the case study scenario, consider the following. How do the choices that Mark and Benny make influence their roles as TAs, and what effects will these types of decisions have on your role as a TA? Secondly, how do the choices that Mark and Benny make affect the students, and how will your decisions on assessments affect your students? And lastly, what are the moral dilemmas that Mark and Benny face in assessing their students, and what dilemmas will you face?